January 16th, 2024. Live streaming from a distant galaxy. This is the world's most controversial podcast. The Doomsy McDoomscroller Show. A philosophical science fiction series featuring realistic futurology and refreshingly heretical commentary on the news. And if you're watching instead of listening, you can see that there's an article scrolled up, ready to go, or maybe I should say ready to scroll, and time-stamped with today's date. But before we get into this, before Doomsy starts reading and scrolling, just a point of clarification on second person possessive and plural pronouns. I'm referring to y'all, to like 8 billion of you. Now, I'm not of your culture anymore. I was, but I've been away from civilized culture for so long now. Look, I don't count as part of it anymore. I'm out of Shawshank. It's incredible what it took to get away from the dominant culture. I had to leave the frickin' planet, for one. This is my only hope. And I'm trying to get back. So that's what the realistic futurology is all about. I know there's going to be no robot apocalypse. Hey, Doomsy's a fan of sci-fi. I love me some Star Trek. But there's going to be there's not time for a robot apocalypse. All right, deforestation's going to wipe out all y'all's economies in just a matter of decades. So that's the realistic futurology. Let's see, we got the pronouns covered. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, the good news. There's always good news on the Doomsy McDoomscroller Show. And here's the good news. Civilized culture is doomed. And that's good news. Because humanity isn't necessarily. Humans existed 300,000 years before civilized culture. And can easily, well, maybe not easily, not at this point now. It's got a couple hurdles to clear for sure. But can go another 300,000 years. If you can go 300,000 years without, prior to civilized culture, you can go without beyond civilized culture. It's not the end-all, be-all of human being. It just isn't. Although, y'all are trying to make it so it's the end-all. So that's always the good news on the Doomsy McDoomscroller Show. And maybe there's other good news, good things to, I guess, say about what's coming, I guess. And Doomsy doesn't believe in any kind of storm gods or anything like that. All right, there's no such thing as prophecy. There's never been a divine message. There never will be. There's no such thing as a divine messenger. There's no such thing as prophecies. You know, somewhere, put it somewhere. Somewhere in any book before Galileo. Okay, we don't even have to go back thousands and thousands of years, right? Just not even 1,000 years really. Just before Galileo, put in a book somewhere, there'll be boot prints on the moon. Then maybe we consider there's such thing as prophecy. Or how about people will have lunch while moving between the clouds? Just somewhere, anywhere in any book before Galileo. Ridiculous prophecies. Probabilities, that's for real. That's a real thing. Those are for sure. Insofar as they give a probability. They're not a prediction. But the elephant in the room is the thing with probability of 1. Probability 1. I don't know if you took a statistics class in school, but if you did, probability 1 is a sure thing. It is pretty much a prediction. And with probability 1, civilized culture is over. It never had a chance. Not even from the get-go. There was never a hope, not on a wing and a prayer, not any Bon John Jovi, or what was it, Frank Reynolds? Frank Reynolds calls John Bon Jovi. I forget. Always Sunny in Philadelphia thing. But that was a funny episode, how he hacked that guy's name. But anyways. So, there's good news in every episode. But there's also a lot of splaining to do. Because I'm looking at things, I have a perspective that nobody else has. But that didn't get me to realize anything. Hey, Doomsy's late to the party. I saw the bars of the cage because people pointed it out to me years ago while I was still on Earth. There was already 1 million minds freed before mine. Well, Doomsy, you make it sound like there's a Morpheus or multiple Morpheuses going around saying free your mind and jump in between rooftops. No, nothing like that. I mean, I guess you could say there's a red pill kind of a thing, but there's no Neo. There's no Neo. There's no the one. There is no one. There's no leader for the revolution that has any chance of keeping Homo sapiens around beyond the next millennia. Any revolution that's going to have any kind of success in staving off extinction is going to be a revolution with no leaders. That's just how it has to be. And that's okay. That's great. You don't have leaders now in civilized culture. Because I'm talking about abandoning civilized culture. And what is civilized culture? What is it? Well, that brings us to today's article. Somehow it's in the Yahoo finance section. Seems to have come from Reuters. And this is from Tuesday, January 16th, 2024 at 12:07 p.m. Okay, and here's the headline. You ready for this? Okay, and be sure you're ready. Because, well, like Morpheus said, what he said, all I offer is the truth. All right, but unlike Morpheus, who had this fantastical, spectacular, mind-boggling, mind-warping, sci-fi, fantasy kind of story, Doomsy and the million people he's following, even though they're not really leading, but Doomsy and those million people just following, just looking with the same wide-angle lens, really. No fantastic story, just kind of take as much in as you can, a little broader perspective, but everything is right under your nose. It's right there. I mean, it'll be obvious. Because it's right there out in the open, the history of your culture. The one that where, you always got to fight for your rights. You always got to fight for your rights. Fight for this. Fight. Even if it's just not even fisticuffs. Be politically active. Fight. If you're not more politically active, you should feel guilty. Maybe you're to blame for all society's problems. Always got to fight. Always fighting. Because maybe there's a lesson in futility somewhere in your history, the history of your culture, and how you're all behaving now, still after 10,000 years, a dozen thousand years of a culture that spread across the globe by way of genocide and slavery. I mean, that's just how it happened. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. Just like, everybody knows, well, maybe that's an exaggeration. Not everybody knows it. But hey, let's go with billions. Say a billion people know it. I mean, it's pretty much the same story. I think that your culture's been telling you about itself for this whole time going. I mean, there was some embellishments made, some edits, some updates made when archaeology and paleontology came around. Had to kind of do serious retcon there. But for the most part, same story. Spread of farming. Let's be more accurate about that very specific style of agriculture. Okay, holy war agriculture is probably the most efficient name or label for farming. And we're seeing it right here in today's article on the Doomsy McDoomscroller Show. Yet more evidence right in front of your face. It's invisible because it's like grape ape, you know? It's so big you don't notice it. And it's been in your face, in your place, in your space, your entire life. Right? Billions of people know that civilized culture is spread by way of genocide and slavery. It happened just recently on North America. You learn about it in U.S. history class that you have to take again and again and year after year while they're wasting your time until you get a job and drag stones like the rest of all the pyramid builders. That story's told. What, you think that was a new thing on North America? The genocide and slavery? You think that was just some newfangled, hey, let's try this? That's what farmers were thinking? New marketing campaign? Well, there's some kind of marketing in it. Because even though it's right underneath your face, it's right there. You call it progress. Somehow what happened to North America in the past several centuries, that was progress. Well, progress. Especially add in the Industrial Revolution, which some people like to blame for everything, clueless about where it all really started. And where it all really started, here we go. We're full circle. Here we are at the article of today, the Doomsy McDoomscroller Show, January 16th, 2024. Here's the headline. Crop-killing weeds advance across U.S. farmland as chemicals lose effectiveness. Crop-killing weeds advance across U.S. farmland as chemicals lose effectiveness. And beneath that headline is a photo with a green plant that underneath a headline with like weeds in it, you know, it makes this plant automatically look nefarious somehow in the dirt that it's in. It's kind of surrounded by dirt. Crop killing weeds. Crop killing weeds. Jeez. Here we go. Crop killing weeds such as kochia? Kochia? I don't know how to pronounce that. Well, there goes my ruse of having a green thumb. Are advancing across the U.S. Oh, back to the article. These weeds. Advancing across the U.S. northern plains and Midwest. And the latest sign that weeds are developing resistance to chemicals faster than companies, including Bayer and Corteva, can develop new ones to fight them. In many cases, weeds are developing resistance against multiple herbicides, scientists said. Reuters interviewed 24 farmers, scientists, weed specialists, and company executives, and reviewed 8 academic papers published since 2021, which described how several weeds, blah, 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 in these states, blah, 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 chemicals lose their effectiveness. Maybe we'll get back down to that. All right. Let me get this off my visor, see where I'm going. Several planets ahead of me. There's none of them are Earth, unfortunately. So, maybe you understand Doomsy's Doomsy's use of the label Holy War agriculturalists to describe farmers, to describe y'all, because y'all are farmers. That's where your calories come from. That's how you exist. Day by day. That's how you keep taking breaths every day. Peeing and a pooping, breathing and a sleeping, eating. Don't forget eating. That has to come before everything else, right? People are made of food. Every animal is made of food. And look what you all do to your food. You lock it up. You lock it up. Okay, how are we not talking about chemical warfare? This is chemical warfare. This is chemical warfare versus Earth. Crop-killing weeds advance across U.S. farmland as chemicals lose effectiveness. This is weapon of mass destruction. Chemical weapons are weapons of mass destruction. And look at the scale at which you're using it. And it's showing up in newborn babies. You sample the umbilical cord blood, and you got all these toxins, all these pesticides, all these chemicals, herbicides, mercury, showing up in newborn babies' blood. Because you got it everywhere. These chemical weapons. This chemical warfare. Weapons of mass destruction. Use it daily. Weapons of mass destruction. And, you know, I think the most, just as crazy as it is that you're using weapons of mass destruction against all other creatures in the habitats in which you're living. Just as crazy as it is to use these chemical weapons against all these other organisms is the fact that you're losing. You're losing this war. You're done. It's game over for civilized culture. It's been collapsing. The collapse is accelerating. And just as you would expect, vast majority at some point are totally oblivious. I know for a fact, I know this for a fact, this is guaranteed truth. Even though billions are oblivious at the moment, right now, millions, at least a million, so I'm going to use plural. I know I could count a million. At least a million see this as totally obvious. This war versus Earth is obvious to millions. Because this war versus Earth is your culture. And to effectively, to really start to decelerate, to slow the stampede. More and more people running in the stampede have got to realize it for what it is, for what it's doing. Trampling everything underneath. But really trampling yourselves. Trampling yourselves because you're losing this war. You're losing it. And the way you're going, I gotta wonder. I gotta wonder if I'm not able to get this hyperspatial quantum entanglement engine working again, if I can't jump universes, if I'm relegated to this one, I don't know how it's going to turn out. At least this article was visible, wasn't buried. So, you're losing this war. Waging war. Look, it's a war. It's a war. Here's the other exhibit B. Exhibit A was that article we read. Exhibit B is your population growth. The population growth of civilized culture. Okay, because about 47 to 50 years ago, y'all were 4 billion in number. 4 billion. And about 47 to 50 years before that, you were 2 billion. So let's just say half century. So 2 billion a century ago, half century ago, 4 billion. Now you're 8 billion. Okay. Here's a fact. All we got to do is take that population growth and couple it with this fact about the world, about the universe. And that fact is this: the life of every organism arises from the death of other organisms. You got that? That's like an axiom. Let's just take that as an axiom. All right? Not going to prove that. Cycle of life, go watch Lion King. You want to see a stampede. Help you with the analogy for your culture. So that's just a fact. The life of every organism arises from the death of other organisms. It's called food. It's called eating. It's called consumption. It's what living things do. Eat other living things. So, yeah. Lots of diapers. Lots more humans. Going from 2 billion to 4 billion to 8 billion. Right? Well, Doomsy, isn't that a lot of life? That's a lot of life. How was that supporting war? No, didn't you? We just went over this. The life of every organism arises from the death of other organisms. So 2 billion, 4 billion, 8 billion. Yeah, okay, for the people of a species who think that they're like gods and they think that they should be everywhere. numbering a trillion. Some of you neo-pharaohs, some of your neo-pharaohs think you should hit a trillion of you. That means, that's a lot of a lot of living warmongers, a lot of living holy war agriculturalists, but that all comes from a whole lot of death. A lot of death. And with civilized culture, a lot of destruction. Death and destruction. Your calling card: genocide and slavery. That's your calling card. And what was it? Your trademark or the evidence that you're going to leave behind? What? I guess cigarette butts, concrete, and plastic. That might be all that Doomsy finds when he gets back. Because I don't know. I could probably have to go into some kind of suspended animation at some point in the trip to get back. I didn't have to get out here. My buddies and I, we reverse engineered the tech of this crashed ship. I got out here instantly, but I have to accept the fact that it could take me a long time to get back. And I'm not so sure that there'll be people on Earth in 100 years, in 200, 300 years. I think in 100 years there'll be people. But in sharp decline. Or there'll be people living in such a way that it's never ever been captured on the big screen. There's never been a story about it. There's never been a movie. There's never been a sci-fi, dystopian, utopian, or otherwise. Nothing in between, nothing even close. Because you don't know it yet. If you knew it, if you were living it, you'd be living it. If you knew it, you'd be living it. If you knew what the new culture, the new world was going to be, you wouldn't be in this problem you are now. You wouldn't be having these issues. So that's just a whole lot of death. 2 billion to 4 billion to 8 billion. And that's happening because you're always increasing the production of food surpluses. You're always doing that. Now, you can either stop increasing food production and see population level out with no calamities whatsoever. Guaranteed. No actual calamities from stopping the increase of food production. Just keep making the same amount. Okay, there's that, which would be the end of civilized culture. Or there's Earth doing it for you, which it's doing. And gonna do, like, in a finalization way. It's gonna do finally. Your population will top out and crash if you have the Earth do it. If you force the Earth to check your population, which is your food production, All right, let's get that straight. It's not just correlation. That's causation, baby. Because that's what babies are made of. They're made of food. They grow up. That's a product of food. Not made of just air. Although, there was some almost like a couple cult followings. There were a couple people who, I guess they were trying to take advantage of intermittent fasting kicks and these new diet fads and long-term fasting and that they were, I guess they got into that and they insisted that they didn't need food at all. That they just by breathing, that was enough. And they would get a following on their social media or whatever it was and actually see people. But then, of course, they're caught in the alley back behind McDonald's, stuffing their face with a Big Mac. Really, that's not an exaggeration. People are made of food. So now let's look at another story. It's very closely related to this, and this is from a year ago or a couple years ago. Doomsy saw this a couple 3 years ago. I'll pull this up, and of course, for those listening, I shall read this article. Oh, wow, the word goes invisible if I highlight it. And it's hard to see. Farming robot kills 200,000 weeds per hour with lasers. And that is the headline of this next article. Farming robot kills 200,000 weeds per hour with lasers. It says a person can weed about 1 acre of crops a day. This smart robot can weed 2 per hour. Okay, impressive, right? Just statistically. We can listen to this article, I suppose. But no, you'll listen to Doomsy. Okay, it's just blah, blah, blah about the robot. We don't have to read the article. But it's for real. I mean, this is legit thing. It's in production. I mean, there's a picture and there's a video. But this thing rolls along your crops. This big huge honking machine. It looks like, I don't know, like machines that you see harvesting crops or doing anything else to crops. It's a big machine, and if you play the video, which I'm not going to do because this is a podcast, the video, you see it just going along the ground like, just like the Terminator, the Weedinator, looking for weeds and just blasting them with bolts of energy. Okay, this robot. Okay, now, you said, well, impressive, Doomsy. And you might even say, well, Doomsy, this is a good development, isn't it? I mean, right? Shouldn't this cut down on the number of chemicals and toxins found in newborn babies' blood? Because all you got to do is sample what's in the umbilical cord as a baby is born. Small sample of that blood has shown that I was born on Earth, 20th century. We were all born with a bunch of toxins in our blood. Bunch of chemicals, industrial chemicals. So you might say, well, Doomsy, this is good, right? I mean, lasers. That's better than weapons of mass destruction, isn't it? I mean, better than chemical warfare. Okay, I'll grant you, it's not chemical warfare. All right, it's not. It's not even really that significant. It just does something faster that humans are doing anyways. Right? Underneath the big headline it says, a person can weed about 1 acre of crops a day. The smart robot can weed 2 per hour. So it's just doing something faster. But this robot, Doomsy's going to use this robot to try to make it more visible. And that is what I want to be more visible is the war. The war and your culture's obsession with turning as much of the general biomass of Earth into human flesh as fast as possible. That's an obsession of your culture, and it's insane. It's crazy. What are you doing? Laser shooting robot or human walking by on hands and knees pulling weeds. Either way, do you see the war? Just the crazy obsession of wanting all this land that is almost like as far as you can see in these photos. You know, if you're standing in the middle of crop, you know, if you're in farmland, USA or any nation, you can look around and see crops until you see like big hills or mountains, things that stop people from putting crops on it. Right? So as far as you can see, just wanting all of that to be growing just one thing. Just one thing. I don't know. What? Wheat, rice, soybeans. I don't know. Pick one of your preferred foods. It's just pick one. Oh, but Doomsy, you rotate crops. Maybe you even got crops one different sitting next to the other, but you know where that particular plant is that you want only that particular plant, nothing else around it. And you will do everything to kill and destroy anything that hinders the production of your preferred foods. Anything. You will do anything to destroy, eliminate everything that hinders or otherwise competes with your food, the production of your food. Chemical warfare? Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Before that, you got deforestation. Let's just wipe it out. Or just genocide of humans and then wiping out other species. Oh, bye-bye, bison. You're not part of our favorite sandwich, so you got to go. trampling all over this cropland. So it's a war. Own up to it. Own up to it, you civilized folks. You're losing this war. Here we go. Here's the end of the episode. And let me just tell you what's happening. Okay, it's happening right in front of your face. You're losing this war. Crop-killing weeds advance across U.S. farmland as chemicals lose effectiveness. Just like, the chemical warfare you have against weeds and critters and everything that might compete, interfere, or otherwise hinder food for you. You've done the same with bacteria and viruses. Bacteria, now you got, you're desperate. Anytime there's just even the hint of something that might work against bacteria now, you got to hoop and holler. Because that warfare has made microbes resistant to your medicines. So you're losing that war. That's another war you're losing. Well, it's a battlefront. You're never going to win a war versus that which you need to survive. It's ridiculous. But you're losing. Crop-killing weeds advance across U.S. farmland as chemicals lose effectiveness. There we are. January 16th. Losers. Lahu Zahur. That's what y'all are. Civilized culture has never been, is not now, and never will be sustainable in any way, shape, or form. But here's the thing. Here's what you got to give up. War. Oh, you also got to give up your neo-pharaohs. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, not sorry, neo-pharaohs. And sorry, not sorry for those who aspire to be neo-pharaohs. There's simply no reason to reward ruthlessness any longer. It's not a requirement for being Homo sapien. Your cultural mythology compels you to think that it's in your DNA, that you have to have millionaires, that you have to have a royal class among you for 12,000 years as you spread genocide and slavery everywhere. But that's cultural mythology. That's not real. You're not beholden to any genetic trait that makes you wage war versus the earth. In fact, there's an abundant amount of evidence that contradicts that. Like 300,000 years of modern humans on Earth without pharaohs. Without warmongering and pyramid building and pharaoh fostering. Here's another huge piece of mythology, a huge chunk of it. Here, let's have it slap you in the face. Here's the myth that the only alternative to civilized culture, anarchy. Anarchy, right? Chaos. I mean, that's the reflex. That's the Like when the doctor hits your kneecap or around your knee, that little hammer. That's the reflex. Is that the only alternative to civilized culture is anarchy and chaos. When you know, if you just pay attention beyond that reflex, you look at the history. Look, here's what you had before civilized culture. You had fashion, you had dinner parties. Yeah, you had lots of other stuff too, lots of other stuff. But fashion and dinner parties. That's what, and aren't you into that now? Humans on Earth? I'm the only human not on Earth. But, I mean, isn't fashion still a thing? Dinner parties? You like having meals with your friends and family? Wearing stuff that you made or that you found? People just making it for themselves, for each other, for hundreds of thousands of years prior to the warmongering, pyramid building, pharaoh fostering culture of yours that's been going on for just 10,000 years. So that's a huge myth. People got along fine. In fact, better than fine. Okay, let's take the value judgment out of it. We can objectively say, yeah, I know. Objectivity, quantum mechanics says that might not be a thing. But look, we can say that it was sustainable. People were living sustainably. Like by definition. What's that phrase? Ipso facto, whatever-o. Sustainable living. Holy War agriculturalists from Europe got to North America several centuries ago, and unbeknownst to them at the time, the people that the Holy War agriculturalists met when they arrived on North America centuries ago, those people on North America had been there 17,000 years, give or take. Depends on the archaeologists or anthropologists you talk to, I guess. Some say go back like 35,000 years. But at least as old as civilized culture itself. I mean, older than that. You can push civilized culture back 12,000 years. Took a couple thousand years of civilized ideology to really generate, slavery. By way of ownership of land, of food. And here you go. 10,000-year-old war, you're losing it. That robot, that is a war machine. If you add each one of those up, those are weapons of mass destruction in totality. It's not chemical warfare. But is it really helping anything? It's better for the soil, for sure. But at some point, and it's already happened. It's already happened. But I guess what I'm saying, there's going to be a tipping point even though nobody has to wait for critical mass of anything. It's incremental, bit by bit by bit. At some point, there'll be more of a public awareness. Doomsy will be reading headlines about, how people find the war obvious. They can see it happening. Maybe it's not a good idea for a human to think of the earth as nothing but a resource for them. That's not required thought. Civilized culture makes you think it's in your DNA, but no. You're not meant to be planet conquerors. Punished planet conquerors. You got to add the punished part, because you definitely ain't successful planet conquerors. But you're losing this war. Chemical warfare, failure. And you know what? That's a good thing. Especially the farther away in time you get from the final collapsing, catastrophic moments of your pathetic culture. Your culture, the culture of maximum misogyny, the culture of maximum child abuse. That's your culture. East and West, 8 billion people now, on the way to 9 billion, because you keep increasing the production of food. That this war is the last one. You're losing it. And that's good news. And it gets better and better. I mean, you don't even have to get away in time from the catastrophe that is civilized culture for it to be a good thing, it ending. You just have to be non-human, or a person who's not civilized human. Say you're a hunter-gatherer somewhere. Then any kind of end to civilized culture is just, you got to be met with applause. Because it's the worst thing that has ever happened on Earth. On any planet, if it were to be there. Civilized culture would be the worst thing on that planet. Wars versus planets, they don't work out. They're not all that common throughout the universe, throughout the multiverse. Every one of them is stupid as F. So, good news, it's going to be over. It's great news for every living thing, every creature on Earth. We're losing this war. You got questions, comments, opinions? Want your voice heard on the show? Then send a voice message. Let's go to the website, www.doomsymcdoomscroller.com. There you can find links to other platforms. I don't know if you're listening to this, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. There's links to all that. Oh, and some backstory too, if you all want to know. Little trivia: Doomsy is not without religion. Yeah, really.